youtube.com/Geek.Aloud Thursday night, 8 p.m. right here. It is the Gaming Enforcement Agency. So below me is Unky Dunky in the second slot. How are you this evening, sir?
Very well, mate. May the fourth be with you.
Oh, may the fourth be with you. You beat me to it. And Bully in the third slot. How are you traveling, mate?
Oh, I'm doing very well, and wouldn't be without May the 4th without the first game on our list. So I'm ready to jump in when you boys are.
Beautiful work. Thank you very much. Throughout the show, ladies and gentlemen, I will be tasking Bully to be patrolling their YouTube chat to flick up any comments that you have. So if you're watching live, please participate in the YouTube chat as we go. Any thoughts or comments? And if you're listening to us after the fact on the audio podcasts, consider this your invitation to come by to a live YouTube stream so you can join in that chat. But the run of show is as follows. We start off with games, interrogation, and deliberation. It is the 8 games we've been playing this week. That'll, of course, be accompanied by a footage as we discuss it. And then we're off to the newsroom. Unky Dunky, how many stories this week?
6 news stories this week, Troy. There's been a lot. We've been 2 weeks off, so some of these news stories we were going to talk about last week are no longer relevant. So, we've got 6 for you tonight.
Beautiful work, mate. Thank you very much. Oh, and I should just apologize to everyone. My motherboard ate some more RAM. Ultimately is what happened. Killed the computer. We've got more RAM back, but the old motherboard. So in a couple of months, we'll choose through some more RAM and expect it again. But then it's segment 3, the standoff. Unky Dunky, what are the constraints this week for the standoff?
With May the 4th and Star Wars Jedi Survivor coming out this last week, starring our carrot-topped protagonist, Cal Kestis, we're going to ask, which other video game redhead would be best suited to survive a Star War?
I love it. Excellent work. And then, as I already discussed, it's audience integration. So any comments that Bully wants to leave until the end, that's when we'll get to them. So without further ado, games, interrogation, and deliberation. First up this evening, as alluded to, it is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. May the 4th be with you, Bully. Tell us things.
Oh, I'll tell you things. How amazing is this game? I know it's copped a bit of heat initially for the PC release and some of the bugs that were on display there, but I've been playing it on the PS5 and it, for me, runs a treat. I'm always a little bit skeptical with follow-up games. So the first game was fairly linear in terms of your way through, and you'd very Dark Souls-esque in the fact that you lock shortcuts back to areas you've already been through, and that's sort of the extent of how open the world is. And this is probably not a massive spoiler, but you go through an opening section, which is part of what we can see on the screen there, and is essentially a tutorial-style section. Once you're through that, you land on another planet that then moves into what is in effect an open, a pseudo-open world on that planet, where you've got a little hub town that you can work through, and then you've got side missions and your main mission that you can sort of branch off into different areas on that planet. So, as I said, I'm a bit skeptical when they start to do that, because they probably, in a lot of games, it seems to be cramming too much into what they're trying to do, and it doesn't often work. I've found it works really well. It's not that big and expansive that you get lost, or that they, as I said, they've tried to put too many things into that world. It's just that one area, and then once you're through that and you progress the main story, you can still come back and do some of those side quests, which is fantastic, or you can just move on to the next planet with the main storyline, which is sort of where I'm up to now, I guess, the third planet or third area that you're onto. In terms of the gameplay itself, it's more of the same as to what we saw with the original Jedi Survivor, which was a fantastic game to start with. I think they've just cleaned up a lot of the little, bits that were a bit rough in the first one. I think they polished it up pretty well. They've expanded the skill trees a little bit. They're not overawing or overwhelming when you go through them, but there's a little bit more in there. And there's a few more collectibles and that sort of stuff that you can sort of work through. I think they had in the first one, they had the collecting the seeds that you sort of bring back to your ship, and then you put those in little garden beds in the ship. Well, in this one, there's basically a rooftop area in a town that you can plant those seeds. So it looks like there's a lot more of those to collect. There's jewels that you can collect and trade in for different items and stuff at one of the town's shops as well. So everything that was in the first one, they've really just expanded it out a bit. I think it plays really well on the console. Again, I can't speak to the PC version because I haven't played it there, and I take on board some of the criticisms I've seen, but I think it's run fairly smooth. Unky and I were talking the other day about he had some performance issues, and this is probably just something to note that I went away and did a little bit of reading about. So in that town, in that first main world that you get to, Unky, you were mentioning that you had some stuttering issues and some frame rate issues going
I
through
had
the
those
town.
as well.
Yeah, which I didn't. So what I've actually found is so there's two settings. There's performance mode, which is, trying to hit that 60 frames a second. And but obviously the trade-off is a slightly lower graphical quality, or you've got the
Quality mode.
Quality mode, that's what I'm after. Thanks, mate. The quality mode, which drops it to basically caps it at 30 frames, but you get a bit better visual quality in the game. So what I've actually found out through doing a bit of reading and what other people have said in online forums and things like that is that the stuttering happens because you're playing it on that 60 frames per second, and it's just some of the it's not quite hitting that on occasion. So when you get to bigger, more open areas, which we're talking about in that tan area where there's a bit more going on, it's a bit more open, and you've still got that the view into the horizon and off into the distance still holds fairly well, but that's where the frame rate begins to drop a little bit. So you might drop from 60 to 50 or 45, and that's where you're going to notice that drop. What I found is, and I had a look at it, I honestly, when I was setting it up, I thought I'd put it on performance mode, but I'd put it on the quality mode. So it's hitting that 30 frames a second with a better quality. And that's why I'm not getting the frame rate drop going through those areas, is it's because it's consistently hitting that 30 frames. So, essentially, I suppose it's up to each individual how you play it, whether you're going to go through that 60 or you want to hit the performance mode at 60 frames. You might have to wait for another patch for them to iron out some of those issues with that, or you can drop it back to get the smooth frame rate across, but you're obviously working at a lower frame rate. But it was funny because some of the other podcasts I've been listening to recently have been talking about the statistics in relation to the 30 frames versus 60 frames argument. And, a lot of gamers, that play a lot of games will say, you've got to have 60, but the evidence suggests that it's actually not the case. And in somewhere between 70 and 80% of cases, and this is the data across the board, is that people actually choose to drop it down. Even if the default is 60, they prefer to drop it down to the quality mode at a lower frame rate. So, again, up to each individual, but I sort of find it in a game like this where you're not relying. Yes, there's a bit of a twitch element to it, I suppose, when you're trying to block or counter or parry some of the enemies. Sometimes the frame rate you really need there, but in terms of just progressing through a story, I find that 30 frames for me, and I know we've discussed it in the past in relation to Gotham Knights. Once you sort of get an hour or two into the game, I don't even notice it. To be honest with you, so in terms of the game itself, I know I've put in about 12 hours. I'm really enjoying it. I reckon it's fantastic. It's more of the same, just expanded. The story's fantastic again. And if I was to review it after that period of time, I'd probably give it a 9. That's sort of where I'm sitting. I don't know what your thoughts, boys, are on your gameplay and how far you are into it.
Can I just ask you before you hand off, mate, you're 12 hours in, how many planets have you seen? And do you know the total count of planets at all?
No, I don't know the total count, but I've sort of gone purposely tried to avoid, I guess, any of the story or, looking too far into it because I really enjoyed the first one and I want to be a bit surprised with it. I don't want to...
Yeah.
It's one of those things, when you look up a game and you go, oh, the average game plays 16 hours or 20 hours or whatever it is, or, I fell into the trap with Resident Evil 4 when I was playing that to Google how many chapters are in the game. So you sort of sit there going, it can work two ways. You go, I've only got 4 to go. I wish it had lasted longer. Or you sort of sit there going, I've only got 4 to go. Let's just push through because I'm almost to the edge or to the end, I should say. So I've sort of tried to avoid any of that and just go in blind and however many it presents is however many I'll get. And I'm not swayed one way or the other. In terms of how many I've seen, You've got that opening planet that I talked about, which is the tutorial section.
Yep.
Then you've got your first main planet, which has got the hub town on it, which I think
And that's
you'll be
the
going
one on screen currently?
Yeah, that's the one on screen currently. And I think from what I can see so far is that you will do a lot of coming back to that planet because there is some characters and stuff that you can try and recruit back to your cantina.
Well, it's interesting you're saying the seeds are happening there as well, because I assumed it was going to be back on the ship, but I'm not far into it at all. But it sounds like, as you're saying now, like this homeworld maybe replaces the ship.
Yeah, in essence, and that's what when we sort of talk about it's expanded it a little bit, is that you've got now an entire town instead of just a ship to go back to and converse with people. And you've got shops in the town, you've got specific collectibles that you can get, and
I love that change. I reckon that's great.
Using those collectibles back at specific shops that will only take those as currency sort of works really well. And from what I could see is that you can actually go into different planets, you can meet people and recruit them back to the cantina, and when you go back to there yourself, you can speak to them again, and they open essentially side quests for that same world that the canteen is on. So
yeah, right.
It's sort of that's what I mean by it sort of expands it out. And then so I've done that. I've done the storyline and a couple of side quests through that, and now I'm up to a third planet, which I'll probably put maybe half an hour into that third planet. So that's sort of where I sit for the time being. I haven't been really rushing through it, but I haven't been doing all the side stories either. So.
Yeah, very good. I've been absolutely taking my time with it. I've put 4.5, almost 5 hours into it now, but I'm only up to this planet. So I saw the original planet and this planet. Few points from my side. I love that they've nailed. I don't believe they did this in the first one. I think this is new for this one, but they've got the audio logs from BioShock. You get to the audio, you sense the echo, you hit R3 and you walk off, and then it keeps playing in the background and I can keep playing. I absolutely love that feature. Everyone should do that. I dig that the force pull and push was in from the start. It was a real slow drip feed in the first game to get that, but then it feels like the developers are really just trusting the gamers. All right, we assume you played the first one, you've got the basics, like have at it. It just really feels like a sequel. Like they expect you to have played the first one, be up enough on your skills and everything, and just it really does feel like a continuation expansion. So I absolutely love everything I've seen. They've sped up the squeezing through gaps and the shimmying along the roof and stuff. Like they've just sped up exploration, and for me, I love it. I don't mind if it seems a bit ridiculous that he can do these acrobatics. Like, how fit would you have to be, Unky, to actually move as fast as he does and, constantly climb, swing, run, grab, fight, keep moving? But it's superhuman movement speed, but it's for the best, I think. I love the grapple hook. The grapple hook's totally new, isn't it, for this game?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I love that traversal option as well. And I was a bit disappointed at the start in that first mission, as you saw in the city. I'm like, geez, it's a chatty crew and there's like 6 of them, and geez, I wish they'd shut up. Minor spoiler alert, but it happens in the first, 45 minutes of the game. They kill half the crew, or maybe 2/3 of the crew, and they wipe out, and I was rubbing my hands together. Beautiful. I won't be hearing from you again. Perfect. Clear the slate. Let's adventure on without you guys nagging at me. I thought that was brilliant. It reminded me, Unky, of what was it, Suicide Squad? Do you remember the second Suicide Squad film? I just opened it up and it's like, here's your crew. Just joking. Kill them all.
Yep.
I thought that was great. The other one I love is the health upgrades happening instantly. Like, it'll only give you a third, but in the first game, I think you had to collect 3 seeds or whatever it was, and then you'd get the health upgrade. Whereas now, it's like this point here, you just sit down, touch it, little health upgrade, little force upgrade. It feels more instant. Everything they've done makes it feel faster and more dynamic. Yet the game is clearly substantially bigger. So my hat is off to them. And the last question, this is a question to both of you, and then I'll hand it over to Unky for your thoughts. I am focusing my skill points on the single lightsaber attack, and I'm ignoring the other 2 options, a dual lightsaber attack, and I don't even remember what the third lightsaber option was. But does that sound like a sound strategy to you guys? Like, try to max out one lightsaber skill tree before hitting the others?
I think I was just going to say quickly, I think from my point of view, the best 2 ones is the single one's good against single enemies or some of the bigger enemies, but the extendable, the dual lightsaber, and not the extendable one, which is the third option, but the dual lightsaber, I find is a lot better against groups of enemies.
Yeah, okay. So you're evenly distributing your skill points in as you go?
Oh, no, I've sort of started with the health and
Force upgrade, maybe?
No, I haven't even touched the force upgrade. I think I've done one for the lightsabers, but the rest I've put into
Survival?
yes, the survival category. So your health, how much the stim packs revive you, how quickly you can do them, etc., etc. So I've sort of pumped a bit more into that just to get through some of those bigger bosses earlier on, and then I'll start working on the lightsaber skills, I guess.
Yeah, very good. So just to wrap it up for me, as I said, I'm about 4.5, 5 hours in, but it is really sitting at a 9.5 for me. I'm loving everything I've done. My only knock against the game, and Bully's already covered off on it, was just in the open world, but you can get a bit of frame tearing or a bit of frame drops, I should say. And that was the one knock I had against it, but Bully's already given us a solution. So it's sitting at a 9.5 for me, and I just can't wait to go hands-on. Unky, your thoughts?
It's not so much a solution as a different way to play the game. I reckon the solution is to still fix that performance mode, because we shouldn't have to worry about performance in this day and age. But especially when a game you said is big, is close to that 150 gig on console for a single player game. I don't think we've seen anything come in that big for quite some time that isn't Call of Duty. So massive game. I'm probably somewhere in between you guys in terms of time played. It feels like with what Bully was saying, though, I might be a little bit ahead. I've gone through and I've done the extra planet and then come back to this planet and doing another bit here. And I've unlocked all the stances now. Bully, have you unlocked all the stances that you get?
Yeah, I believe I've got them all. Yeah.
So you've got another one that you guys haven't spoken about yet, which is the blaster stance. And you've also got the Kylo Ren stance, I like to call it, which is the big giant blade that's got the two little things like the crossblade. So you get that as well. So I've been sort of holding off on the lightsaber points till I decided sort of how I wanted to play the game and which lightsabers I prefer using. And I'm like I do prefer the dual one, which has got the big long Darth Maul style one, because it's better at deflecting lasers and stuff like that back at.
Can I jump on that?
Yeah.
You know how I always turn off subtitles because I get distracted by stuff happening at the bottom of the screen. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
I can't do dual lightsaber for the exact same reason. The extended out bit at the bottom going on the bottom of the screen past my feet. It distracts me and I keep getting lost in the fight. I'm like, what's going on? Where should I be looking?
Oh dear. That's all right. Well, there's plenty of other options for you. Do the dual one. That's
I
fine.
was just doing the single because I'm like, I just need one point to focus on. Don't give me two. It's too much.
Oh, fair enough. There's plenty of. You got the blaster one. That's one lightsaber plus the blaster. You got the normal lightsaber plus you got the crossblade one. So you got three options for that if you like. So you can flick between E2 whenever you like. So that's good. No, I'm loving my time with this game. It's obviously what Bully said. It's more of the same, but it's just expanded upon and done things way better than the first one. It's taken away the tedium the first one had with its upgrades, like you said, Troy, with its fast travel around these worlds. It's so much easier to travel between fast points, which is going to make it so much easier to go back to points and do the side quests and hunt for the extra items to potentially go for the platinum for this game, which I could see myself doing at the moment because it is so much fun to be in this world and explore. And I think they've created such a nice big Star Wars world to live in. They've created that Jedi fantasy that we've always dreamed of. Yes, the Fallen Order did it first, but this is just doing everything better. You start off as a souped up, powerful Jedi. You're not worrying about having to get any of those sort of abilities at the start, and your abilities are only expanding upon pretty much how Cal finished his game in the end of the game. He pretty much got all the way to begin with, which I love doing that. I hate when sequels, make you start from scratch again and as if you never played the first game. So really love the fact that they just keep you as, a powered up, souped up Jedi. The way the game starts with you can sort of see where it's coming with the infiltration, but when it still hits, he's like, you got him. And it was, you're in here with me kind of thing. But no, I really, really enjoy the acting. I think the voice acting so far, I think with the breadth of characters they've already brought into this game, not just so much the ones they've killed off, but the extra ones they've brought into, they've actually endeared you towards them already. And I think I really love that little froggy guy that you meet pretty early on as well. I think the internet's sounded off as well, but they seem to enjoy that character a fair bit as well, which he looks stupid, he's funny. I quite enjoyed him. He's quintessential Star Wars alien. And I really like, is it Bodhi or Bode, the new guy that's sort of the survivor from the start of the game out of that group. I really like his character. He's got an air of Han Solo about him. He's a bit bigger, brasher, and they keep making jokes about Cal not having a jetpack. So whether we're going to get some kind of flight ability later, I don't know.
I assumed because they revealed that BD could do his jetpack at the start in the tar pit when he's scanning the old mate. He doesn't fall off and then jetpacks down. I'm like, by the end of this game, I reckon BD1's going to be flying us around. Stay attached as he is and just burp.
It is a possibility, but again, they have actually put mounts in this game as well now. So there are flying mounts, which you sort of get.
You mean you can ride BD
areas.
by the end of it?
I don't know if you can ride it. It looked quite humorous, actually, like me riding a child's BMX bike. But even more humorous. But no, you do have flying characters, which sort of would, you wouldn't quite need those in these sort of open areas if you had BD flying you, but maybe that's the case. Maybe that is a thing that happens later on, but you've got other mounts you can get on in this area to help traverse easier, get up to higher points, and just sort of certain things like this. I think it's add a little bit more to the world of Star Wars and just living in that Star Wars fantasy. But I think they've absolutely nailed it. I'm with you guys. Just all they need to do is fix up that performance, because I'm massive when it comes to performance, and I thought it's something they would be able to fix. The first game still suffers to this day from stutters and stuff, especially on the Xbox Series X. But yeah, it's just one of those things like you think this day and age with a game that's 150 gig, you're not getting performance issues on the performance mode. And I've heard there's rumors that it might be because ray tracing is turned on by default. You can't turn it off. And a lot of games, that's how they get around their 60 frames per second, is having the ability to turn off ray tracing. I know even that on Resident Evil 4 did it recently. You can turn off, the hair follicle stuff and the ray tracing, and your performance is pretty much perfect. So whether that's something they can do, I'm sure it is. I know they've heard, and I just have to laugh at it. That's why I was laughing at the start of this thing. Look at the screen, Destroy doing a platform section and just jumping to his demise. It's just looped around perfectly. So if you saw me laughing at the start of the show, that was why. I wasn't laughing at Bully. No, I'm with you. The game itself, they've gone, and done it. It's the perfect quintessential sequel to the first
In my
game.
defense there, Unky, doesn't that black bit on the side of the ship look like you should be able to run and grab onto it? That's what I thought was that. I'm like, I'm just going to climb up the side of the ship. Oh, no.
Admittedly, I was looking at you thinking that's exactly what he's doing. I believe he should be able to do it. So I'll let you have it. I'll slide. Just like
we all know I'm a nunce when it comes to 3D platforming, though. I'm fooling no one.
We do. But no, I'm with you there. About a 9.5 for this one. At the moment, as it stands, I could see it sort of getting even bigger and better as I unlock more abilities. And I know I'm going to, because it's got that Metroidvania style thing where I'm already seeing stuff I can't get to because I don't have those abilities yet.
Yep, absolutely. I'm loving it. Shall we move along, gentlemen?
Well, just one thing. I was just going to say quickly before we do, there was a comment in there from Todd Garrow saying he's not a big Star Wars fan, but it does look good. Well, I can tell you, just for experience, I've seen all the Star Wars movies, but I'm not someone that could tell you the ins and outs and the backstories and all the rest of it. I've enjoyed them for what they were and sort of moved on. Well, I'm enjoying this game immensely without having that massive fanboy or knowledge background of it. So even if you're just mildly interested in third-person action games, I think this is fantastic. And it just so happens to be set in a Star Wars universe and has some of that storyline and backline to it as well. So you don't necessarily have to be a Star Wars fan to enjoy it.
Fair enough. I'll apologise to Garo. Sorry, I didn't realise you weren't a Star Wars fan. I'll take the T-shirt off. I'm being silly. All right. Another Star Wars stuff. And underneath, you didn't see that one coming. All right, game 2 this week, Dead Island 2.
Oh, another sequel. This one as well. I mean, the development cycle on this one a little bit longer than Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Like, this one took 10 years to come out from the first one, but everyone sort of thought this is going to go the same way as the Saints Row reboot and all that, and not be any good. But they actually pulled it off. I think it's it's one of those games that you could say swimming in sevens and stuff. I'd probably put a little bit higher than that.
I'd put it higher as well, mate. It's lighting me up.
Yeah, I'm absolutely loving this. It's a video game, video game. Nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of video games out there trying to be too much these days. I think this thing, what it does very well. And it's in terms of the zombie genre, I really like the way they've done this the new damage stuff, tech they're using on this is phenomenal. I know Dying Light just came out with a patch just to sort of be exactly the same as this.
Have you gone back to look at it? I haven't seen the results.
I haven't gone back to it yet, but it was pretty funny that it launched the same day as this game came out.
It was the day before, wasn't it? Or they did their press release the day before.
I think press release day before, this thing dropping tomorrow, which is the same date, coincidentally, as this game. But to be honest, I have to say I'm enjoying this game more than Dying Light. I think it's...
Yeah.
Arguably, I just think I preferred my zombie game set in the as in it's just happened, as opposed to, miles down the track where we don't have guns and all that kind of stuff.
I'll tell you what it is for me, man. I hear what you're saying. That doesn't do it for me. But what does it for me in this? It's the bright blue skies, it's the palm trees,
Yes.
and it's the not taking itself too seriously. Like, it takes itself seriously enough that the whole thing's not a joke, but it's so lighthearted and so silly. It just beautifully threads the needle of being serious, not too serious, enough humor in it, and it's just a beautiful spot where you want to spend time. So I love it. Back to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think it's probably best summed up by tone. I think the tone of this video game is just perfect. Like it's still, the game plays like almost like that very first trailer we saw way back in the day when it was going to be developed by someone else. It still evokes that same feeling that game was going for. And I was all down for this game when I saw that first trailer. And I think they absolutely nailed the LA look. Like, yes, we're calling it Dead Island, but we're in LA, and all the locations. It's not open world, it's open zone. But I think that was a very smart move because I think that enabled them to put a lot more detail into each of these zones as well. And you actually,
they set up the scenarios all the way through it beautifully. By having it more linear, they can set up, oh, we're going to put you here, we're going to put a pool in full of toxic and then a bunch of zombies on the other side, and you can experience them going through and cooking themselves. But they can only do that because it's small linear sections, Unky.
Agreed, and it's sort of have a sense of place. You feel like once you've sort of been in those sections for a while, you sort of figure out where certain places are. Or I think in some open world games, you can find yourself getting lost and everything looks the same. Whereas all these zones have a distinct look and feel to them, especially if you're playing at different times of day, night. Eventually, when you're transporting between these things and fast traveling, you can switch whether you're going to go into that area by day or by night. It can vastly change the way that game looks, but even going out at night, the game looks really beautiful. It's not too dark, like the bright colors shine, the fire shines, and I might want to speak to the fire, but it's some of the better looking fire and stuff we've got recently.
Yes, thumbs up for the fire in this game. They've nailed it. It's not got the 10 frames per second issue that so many other games do, Hunky.
No, that's right. And moving on from that, like the weapons and stuff, I love the weapons and how you can just, it's not quite the extent of how Dead Rising does it with some of the outlandish stuff you can do there, but this you can add like toxic, fire, electricity to any of your melee weapons, any of your firearms. Eventually you can do the exact same thing to them as well, and they all sort of look different the way you might upgrade them, but then some enemies might be resistant to a certain thing, so you got to really change up the way you play. But for me, this was sort of sitting at like maybe an 8 before I got guns, and you sort of play, and there's a story beat. I actually really like the way they did that and just didn't give you guns straight away. It makes you sort of work for it. And by the time you get it, you really is that power fantasy of now I do have firearms in the way. And by the time you start getting more and more guns, I'm a big fan of using pistols in games, and I really enjoy getting the upgraded pistol in this and bringing it out and popping headshots and doing all that stuff. I just think the way they sort of work that in there, and by the end of the game, you've got this massive arsenal of all these different guns and shotguns and handguns. You've got, what else you got? You got your assault rifles. There's so much different stuff to your disposal about how you want to play your character, depending on which character you pick. Some have different traits. I went with Jacob, the British talking guy with the afro. He's he was quite fun to play through the whole story. I've rolled credits on the game now.
Oh, really?
I finished.
What was the hour count?
I was trying to find it today. I couldn't seem to find an actual hour played, but I reckon it was maybe 20 hours, and I've done the whole campaign plus probably just over 70% of the side quests and stuff as well. I've been trying to knock out a lot of the other challenges and stuff they give you as well. But a fair bit of the stuff, and they leave it towards the end. They leave it open for the DLC that's inevitably coming, because I think it was I think you can pay for the expanded pass or something, or the deluxe edition came with an expansion pass thing with it. So they're obviously working on DLC, which I'll definitely play for this. It's one of those games that I've just had fun pretty much the whole way through it, with its tongue-in-cheek story and gameplay and the way the actors portray these characters, I think it's done very well. For a game that essentially was going to be dead on arrival, it's doing a lot better than a lot of other games that should be doing better at the moment.
I went into this game with such low expectations. I really hesitated in hitting the buy button. I was like, oh, this game's going to be bad. I'm going to waste my money. But then I heard from you, Unky, high praise initially, your sort of initial thing, and that was enough to nudge me over the edge. So I picked it up, and this game has blown me away, because what is this? It's the third developer that's had a crack at the title, Dead Island 2. But I say time well spent and good call, because this game is really phenomenal. And obviously my priority at the minute is Star Wars, but this is a tight number 2. When I need a break from Star Wars, I'm definitely coming back to LA. Bully, have you gone hands-on with this one, mate?
Yeah, certainly have. I was probably the same as you, Troy. I was very trepidatious about the game. I was pretty adamant that it wasn't going to be a day one for me, and I was just going to wait and see how it played out. But again, speaking to Unky, and he was singing, had nothing but praise for it, and how well it played and how fun it was. And I went for a trip to buy, I think, Octopath Traveler 2 on the PS5. That was on sale at one of the local game stores. And as I was walking past on my way to the checkout, saw Dead Island on the Xbox and couldn't help myself. I had to go and buy it. So I'll probably put about 7 or 8 hours into it at this stage, I would have thought. And I was saying to Unky the other night, I think it's one of those games that I find it really enjoyable, but I enjoy it in small doses. And that's not to be critical of the game. I just find that, play it for an hour or two. I really enjoy that hour or two I'm playing. And then I'll sort of go, okay, I've had my fill of that and I'll come back to it tomorrow. So for me, it's a really good interim game where you sort of go, you're not going to you're not going to sit there and spend, night after night after night playing it. You're going to jump in, have a little bit of a go, then go back to the main game, wherever it is you're playing. You come back a couple of days later, you put another couple of hours into it. That's sort of how I'm playing it, and that's where I'm enjoying it. And certainly, I haven't got up to the part that Unky was talking about where you get access to guns and stuff, but certainly even just the melee weapons that you get to start with certainly have a weighty feel to them. Like you actually feel like you're doing some good damage with, some of the iron bars and stuff. And it's also counteracted by the fact that you can get meat cleavers and knives and stuff, which are a lot faster. You can, start slicing the zombies, and you actually see the cuts you're making across their chest, or you cut their arm off, or you cut their leg off. I think it's been really well done. And, credit to them, because I think, and I stand to be corrected, but this is the third development crew that's worked on it.
Yep.
And they basically stripped back what the other two had done, basically to its core level, and rebuilt the whole game up almost from scratch, is to my understanding. And I think they've done a really good job with what they've done. There's a couple of minor little sort of things when I'm playing through it. Like I'd like the auto pickup is probably one of the things where you walk into a room and you find yourself scouring a room, but picking up, every item in there. You have to actually, that's glowing. Move the cursor over that, pick that up. And for a lot of it, it's just a lot of the pickup items are just things that you can then use to upgrade your weapons and stuff. So it's not like, you change. I don't mind it if it's not the weapons, but just stuff like that, I think just should be auto pickup. That's
well, the weird thing about that, mate, I don't know if you noticed, but cash on the ground is auto pickup, but materials are manual pickup. Like, shit will get off the John. What are we doing here?
And that's what I found funny is that, exactly that. It auto picks up cash, which is obviously a consumable in the game, but it won't pick up the other consumables in the game. It's just bizarre. So there's that was mildly annoying, but it's not hardly a game breaker. It's just one of those. It's just one of those things that you sort of you wish didn't happen. And there's a couple other things that and I can't recall off the top of my head exactly what they are. But if just minor little things that if they had to just tidy those up, I think I'd be probably looking at 8 or a 9, where I'm probably sitting at maybe a 7 at the moment. Just because of those sort of minor little annoyances. But overall, I'm really enjoying it and playing it in that sort of fashion almost. I
think you'll find when you unlock the guns, you'll probably elevate it a bit for you. That gunplay really does open up just that wheelhouse of stuff you can do in the game and how much fun it is. So you can keep stuff at range. I think that provides that variety that you don't otherwise have. And just as you think the melee's getting a little bit tight, the guns come into it and it really sort of opens it up. So I think, once you get those guns, I think you'll find, you'll even have a better time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just the other annoyance which just came to me is that the weapon wheel and the way that they've got that set up, where you've got basically the clock face of all the items, but you click on one, say that's at 1 o'clock, but then you've got to hit left and right on the D-pad to scroll across. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that, but I just found it sort of annoying and almost frustrating early on until I worked out how that operated, that I'd be getting into positions where I thought I'd had no melee weapons left to be able to attack, and was ended up trying to punch the zombies. And then it was only maybe an hour into it when I realised, no, you can actually flick across to in that specific weapon wheel, you can actually flick left and right, and you've got other things in there. So again, not a massive issue, but it's just.
Well, you know what I will say.
Yep.
At least it's got a weapon wheel.
Well, I'm sure we'll touch on that again very shortly. But otherwise, yeah, I'm very surprised with how it was put together in the end, to be honest, and pleasantly surprised, I have to say. And you know, probably glad that I picked it up. I've enjoyed it, as I said.
Yeah, I want to shout out the side quests as well. They're well written. Normally, a game like this, you might have a decent main story, but then the side quests are all a bit icky, maybe a bit too tongue in cheek, or fetch quests are not great. But this is what you're seeing on screen here. It's, at least for me, it was the first side quest I come across, but was thoroughly enjoyed the character, enjoyed the way it was written. He was unique. I just think they've done some really nice things. Like, they've gone above and beyond. A lot of people, especially in this day and age, how many games are we seeing coming out nowhere near fully cooked? This game's fully cooked, plus it's got a dessert course in it as well.
And it's only got a performance mode. You can't put a quality mode because performance mode actually just runs and works. It just does 60 frames per second. That's all it does.
It's 2 big thumbs up from me, but no additional points. Anyone for final points before we move on?
No, I think we've covered it pretty well.
You're satisfied, Bully?
Carry on.
All right, then game 3 this evening is over to you, Unky, for some Redfall action. And look at that field of view, maximum 120 degrees there. Look at that on display.
You're a monster. I was going to jump on here and say Redfall, but I've actually jumped in, and since my first initial reactions weren't great, and I think you guys had a Let's Play go up, was it yesterday or day before?
Yeah.
Where you guys were sort of shit canning it, and I was in the chat there, also shit canning it. But since that time, I've found a very decent sort of tip in relation to controlling the game. Drop your input latency down to low and crank up the whatever is the rotate the joystick, whatever it is, to 4. And the game plays a lot more smoothly, and it doesn't completely fix the 30 frames per second, but it does give you a more and much better smooth gameplay experience, more akin to a 60 frame per second game, especially in a first-person shooter where you want tight controls, which I wasn't feeling at the start. Like, I was getting into situations and just getting destroyed based on the controls.
Does that carry over, and I'm not trying to be facetious here, does that carry over and fix the UI, like the main menu's UI? Once you've got that sensitivity on the thumbstick fixed, does the main menu become usable?
The main menu's not the best, but you don't spend all that much time in it other than going there quickly to switch out weapons every now and again, which is what we said before about a weapon wheel. It'd be nice to see this game have a weapon wheel. You pretty much pick 3 of your main weapons, and then you just rotate between them by tapping Y. But you must always have a gun that's got a stake in it to sort of finish off the vampire as well, which is a unique and fun mechanic in itself. But it'd just be nice if you could rock, 3 weapons that don't need them, like a pistol, the UV gun, and something else, or an assault rifle that might not have a stake. Yes, you can add stakes to it, but then be able to quickly using a weapon wheel. So that's probably an easy fix, I'd like to say, but they've got a lot of other fixes they need to make before then, like co-op, which I know you guys had a rough time with. Bully and I played probably for about an hour and a half last night, co-op with these new control schemes, and we actually had a fair bit of fun and no real issues. We had one crash maybe that just sort of jumped us out of the game, but other than that, I jumped in there and helped him with his game. Obviously, story progression is the one main issue with co-op, that only the host progression carries over in-game, that's unforgivable, I think, when it comes to co-op games. Especially this day and age. Lucky for me, I'd played a fair bit. I'm up to about 13 hours into the game now, so I've played a fair bit in the last couple of days just because I am enjoying the core gameplay loop now, and I have found the fun in this game, and I think it is one of those things that it wasn't ready to go. Microsoft had to put it out, which is unfortunate because Microsoft just keeps copping heat at the moment for having no party games are any good. This was supposed to be the big first one to come out that was good and sort of put them back on the map, but it's definitely not done that. Its PC performance and stuff's been horrendous. A lot of people are reporting massive crashes and glitches and stuff. It's had one patch since then, I think. I haven't had too many bugs or issues. I reckon I've crashed into the main menu maybe twice. I've seen no real in-world issues. I've had no glitches with story, nothing like that. So for me, I'm playing as Jacob again, which I found was quite funny that I picked characters named Jacob in the Dead Island 2 and this game. Both vastly different characters, but both called Jacob. But his abilities and stuff, I think, have made me enjoy this game more than someone else playing it solo. I did have a look online before playing to see which character is best for solo play, and his name kept coming up. That he can go invisible, which is great for stealth, which is the way I like to play some of these games, especially a game from the makers of Prey and Dishonored, where stealth is what their game's all about. Still criminal that you cannot. There's no mechanic for stealth takedowns. It's just a shitty little melee attack you do when you sneak up behind people, but at least being able to stay invisible and pop off, shots with a silenced pistol or a silenced sniper rifle. That's where I'm finding some of the fun playing this game solo. But then play the co-op. Completely different experience with Bully. Just going hell for leather, guns blasting, and enemies coming out from everywhere. Completely different type of fun. Which, again, if this game runs at 60 frames per second and they can add a bit more content in this, I could still see myself playing this game for a little bit.
Did you notice? I noticed, and we discussed it on the Let's Play, that in single player mode, the trigger was instant, and then as soon as we went into a co-op mode, there was noticeable latency between pulling the trigger and the gun going off in game. Did you notice that?
No, I did ask Bully that last night because I was having no issues on my end. It still felt like I was playing the single player version of it. It was flawless performance, and I think Bully said as well he didn't find that issue at all playing with me last night. So I'm not sure whether it might have been a server issue on their part, given the game always online, which I think another criminal offence for these guys in relation to a single player game that requires an online connection to play it, which I think that's one of the things they're trying to work on to get rid of that aspect, which could alleviate some of those issues as well. But I think the main thing they need to do is get the performance patch out of the way. This game needs to run at 60 frames per second as a first-party Xbox game on Game Pass that everyone's playing on the most powerful console getting around. If they can't put out games that look like this, it looks okay, but it's not doing anything that any other games aren't doing that shouldn't be able to run this at 60 frames per second. As far as I'm concerned, it's got a unique art style, but this art style is no different to playing God of War, which is, you could argue, in terms of the way it looks, a much better looking game. That thing runs 60 frames per second flawlessly and has a lot more going on at any given time.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it is the online aspect of the game that causes that, but no, I mean, as I said, I've managed to find the fun in Redfall, and it's not quite the scathing review I was going to give it initially that I went off started playing it.
Good on you, mate. I'm glad you found some positivities. For me, go back and watch that Let's Play with Bully. Excuse me. You'll see how low I was in the game. I was so low on it, I've uninstalled it off my hard drive. The intent for me is to come back around Halloween and cop it, assumably 60 frames a second and with some expansions. Unky, do you know landmass wise? Bully and I were speculating about the size of the map, and it might be a bit restricted. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so it does have multiple maps, as far as I know, for the game. I think I'm coming up on completing the first map, which is the one you're running around in, which is not all that big. It's not tiny, but it's not all that big. The second one definitely looks bigger from what I've seen of screenshots than this one, maybe even twice the size of this. So,
do you know context-wise, is it like the next town over, or would it be a spoiler?
I'm not sure how it works. All I know is that once you leave this map, you cannot come back to it. So you need to make sure you get everything done in this map, and then you move to the next one. And there might even be a third one after that. But I think it's again, something a bit weird that you can't come back to this map once you've done it. Maybe there's no point in terms of story progression why you would need to come back here. So, and I've been trying to knock over all side quests and stuff here anyway, because it is essentially a looter shooter. So you are unlocking different, your oranges, purples, greens, grey versions of your weapons and stuff. I've seen some pretty fun guns, and some of the stuff you get perks on them are quite cool as well. But there's a lot of that picking up a lot of guns you don't actually need, just salvaging them. But I do have to give them credit for making salvage nice and easy. It's just a hit of a button, it's gone from your inventory, and you get some stuff for it. So no, that's Redfall. It's definitely not quite the dumpster fire that I initially thought it was, that most people are sort of going to rag it out for. I am managing to find the fun. I do like to try and see on the positive sides with games. And again, I was pretty sad on the fact that I was going to have to trash the absolute hell out of this game, but I've put 13 hours into it, and I'm finding the fun, and I'm still going to keep jumping back into this, and just hope that 60 frame per second patch is not too far around the corner. But who knows? Who knows how far away that is?
Good on you, mate. Very good. The only other question I had for you was I wasn't a big fan at all of the cutscene style. The visual look of the cutscene seemed very low budget and quickly just animate it and get it out the door. What were your thoughts on the story, the cutscenes?
Yeah, story's quite light on. I think that's mainly due to the fact that it is supposed to be a co-op shooter, so they're not going to want to sit you in cutscenes too long if you're playing with other people that are probably going to skip them anyway. But for me, it's weird because all the marketing leading up to this game was just all these awesome CG cutscenes with the characters and how they came to be in this world, and you just get none of that in the actual game itself. It is these weird still cutscenes that makes the game kind of come across as budget, which it shouldn't be for a developer like this, and for a game that's owned by Microsoft now. Like, it shouldn't be coming out and thinking this is a budget game, especially when you can go get a whole bunch of other budget games on Game Pass. This could easily just fall into that breath of just like, this is just another one of these budget games, when it's in fact not. So and I just don't know what they're charging, like $160 or something for one of these editions on on the Xbox Digital Store. I'm like, if you spent that much money on this game, you'd probably throw your console on the bin if you saw it out. no, the fact that it is on Game Pass does give everyone a chance just to jump in there, and I'm glad that's how I play the game, because I think from those initial reactions, I would have been very upset if I'd spent money on it. But I think it's definitely could have a redemption story, like a lot of those other games have had, which have come out undercooked or underdeveloped, and over time have gotten better, especially with a live service model. Whether they give it the time to grow and time to cook, that's the question.
Fair call, mate. Bully, your thoughts?
A bit torn, to be honest with you. I know the first time I really went into it as a co-op was with you, Troy, when we did the Let's Play, and I think I'd only sort of put maybe the 20 minutes in from the start of it till you get to the fire station, which is essentially the hub area of the game where you use that as a base and restock and get your missions and all that sort of stuff. So the first time I played it with you, I think I might have done one mission after that, which is what we then ended up playing through. But initially I was with you, Troy. I found it. I think I used the term last gen, which I think you were a bit shocked at, and we spoke about after the Let's Play that. You sort of disagreed a little bit with that in terms of some of the assets that they had on screen and the way it was sort of put together, that it didn't really strike you so much as last gen. For me, it was more the UI, some of the HUD display, and even you can see some on the screen there where you're going through some of those muddy areas or more bland areas. That to me really drew feelings of it being last gen, whereas when you get into some of those other areas, which you're sort of working through on the screen, is into that suburban area, where I think that looks a lot better, and there's a lot more to it. But certainly there's some issues with that, and Unky's touched on the weapon wheel. I thought that not having that, but I still think, and Unky, you touched on it. The greatest sin is the progression, and only one of you being able to do it at a time. I can't fathom. That anybody has play tested this game and thought that was a good idea. I'm shocked, and it's almost. And I'll come back to that in just a sec. But the next night, when as Unky alluded to before, we jumped on it and played for about an hour and a half or so, and I didn't mind it the second time. Whether it was just sort of getting into it a bit more, getting into the gameplay and the mechanics and the sort of loop that was going on, I actually didn't mind it. The second time, but a large part of that was that the areas that we played through, Troy, was up into the mountains through some muddy areas. It was dark, it was bland.
Yeah.
But then the areas that I was playing with Unky was in the town, and we were going through buildings. We went through a cinema, we went through a hotel and different areas, and it gave off a very different feel playing it that way. So it might be worth just sort of getting back into it, doing some of those missions in those different areas that gives you a different feel to how it plays.
Yeah. Okay.
Am I going to be there long term? I don't know, but I think I said to Unky last night when we were playing, I draw a little bit of a comparison to the original Destiny, that came out in not the greatest shape in the world. There was complaints at the time, I recall, about some of the story or the lack thereof, some of the voice acting. And I think famously Peter Dinklage got removed as a voice actor and replaced not long after the launch of the game. And that went through a fairly rough 6 to 8 month period before they got some patches in. They worked through some of those issues. They expanded the storyline out and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not as grim as some in respect to the game. I think there's a good shell there. It just needs a bit more polish and a bit more work. And I agree that I still think, and Unky's mentioned there's another map, and conceivably down the track there could be DLC with extra areas and different places that you can go to, which would be fantastic. But I sort of struggle, I guess, a little bit with how much gameplay there can be going forward if you've only got 1 or 2 maps and that lasts for the first sort of 12 months, because they're not massive maps. They're not massive areas, and you can sort of see most of it within a couple of hour period. So you get, and yes, there's different missions and different things you can do within it, but you sort of see most of the map within a couple of hours. So I'm assuming that the next map that Unky talks about is a similar sort of size, that you're going to go to that within 3 or 4 hours. You're going to see most of what's on offer in that map, and then it's just about repetitively going through and doing different missions and that sort of stuff. So I'm a bit concerned in that aspect as to whether in the time that it takes to get that 60 frame option, to to polish off some of these issues. Hopefully, that's in the first patch that the progression issues dealt with. But I'm just concerned at the time that's going to take to implement and put into the game is that they're going to drop off a large percentage of the players, even though it's on Game Pass. You can make an argument as to say whether it's free or whether you pay for it because it's a subscription service, or however you want to say it. But the reality is, you're not paying full price. You're not if you're doing it through Game Pass, you're not paying full price for the game. So there is that aspect to take on board. But whether people are going to stick around for another 6 or 12 months to see the fruits of the work that we're anticipating they put into it to get it up to that really high standard, I'm not really sure. And it's a bit of a shame, really, because as I said, I think there's some decent bones to it. It's just not a finished product in a state that we were really anticipating. And I'll be honest, I was extremely excited for it. I was keen for it. I like Arcane games. Obviously a Bethesda studio, and for the most part, Fallout 76 aside, I've really enjoyed most of what Bethesda's put out in the last 15 or 20 years. So I had high hopes for it, but unfortunately, it's lacking, and I hope that they get onto it fairly quick and patch most of those issues out.
Now, before I put Troy's tinfoil hat on for a sec, I'm just going to quickly say another good aspect of this game is the sound design. I think it's got a really, I was saying, a really nice chunky headshot sound, which I really do enjoy with these games. And I think a lot of the music's done really well. The gun sounds really good. I think that aspect of the game's really good. So, but now for the tinfoil hat, Troy, I'm chucking your tinfoil hat on. I've mentioned this before, but I think all these games in this last sort of week or so, these last few games come out last couple of weeks with poor performance. I reckon Nintendo has paid all these developers. They've got 60 frame per second modes. They've got no issues in their actual game patch ready to go. Nintendo's gone out and said, our game of Zelda only runs at 30 frames per second. All your games are going to run like shit until Zelda comes out. So it makes Zelda look better, and no one's going to gripe about Zelda's, performance issues. Once Zelda comes out, bang, Redfall, 60 frames per second. Bang, Jedi, 60 frames per second.
I love it, Unky. You feel free to borrow that hat anytime, my friend. Good work.
There we go. Yeah, thanks, mate.
Bully, any final thoughts from you?
I hope they get it fixed. That's about where I'm sort of sitting. I hope they get it fixed, and I hope they get it fixed quick.
I hope they get it fixed too. And as I said, they've got about 5 months before I swing back around to installing it. Fine viewers, stand by. Quick active reload, about 30 seconds. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back now. Game 4 this evening is over to you, Unky Dunky, for some AFL 23 action.
Whoa, Unky, before you start, I just need this water. I need this water quick, because I've got this flaming pile of trash, and I just need to put the water on it.
Bully and Troy, we've had Redfall, now we've got AFL. 23. What a stinking pile of shit this game came out to be. It already had issues. Got pushed a month already on console, PC, and Xbox. Less than a week before release, they said this game's now being pushed to June for Xbox users, physical and digital, which was a bit odd. I thought there's no reason why you couldn't ship the digital version. But anyway, but now I know why, because it's not finished. Like, you load this game up and it's like something's missing. It's almost like this was a code of the game they had before their day one patch was available. And I've tried to find articles, and apparently that they're having issues with the day one patch, and maybe it hasn't actually installed on the game.
Well, just sorry to interrupt and jump in there, Uncle. You'll find, hopefully it'll go live tomorrow. I did an install for it, and normally jump into it and have a look at some of the settings once the install's finished. I couldn't even open the game. I went to the front screen. I was hit at X or whatever it was to start. You hit X and it'd go logging in, back to X. Okay. X, logging in. I had to shut down my whole PS5, restart the thing to be able to get in to actually play the game.
That's hilarious. Sorry, can I just quickly jump in? We're looking at Bully's footage here. Bully, you're playing on the PS5. Unky, you've played PS5 as well, or Xbox?
No, PS5, as I said, Xbox delayed till June.
Oh, sorry. I missed that. Sorry.
That's all right. That is okay. No, it's just I've had 3 hard crashes already when the game's doing pretty much nothing, which is what pretty much just like the AI does in this game as well, because that also does nothing. You can just literally run around them and they just stop. Like, you can grab a ball from the full back line and just walk it essentially down the other end and kick a goal if you like. Like, they do not touch you even on the hardest difficulty.
They actually run away.
Broken. Yeah, they run away. They'll get to you and go, oh, no, my player's gone this way. I better follow him. It is fundamentally broken. So they need this patch or something to come out. It's come. They were saying it's supposed to have pro team and stuff with all the older players in your teams. That's not there. It's got only one career mode, which is just a one season, which is not a career mode at all, which it was supposed to have. Handballing is completely and utterly broken. If you have a player running past you, it highlights the character in the cursor that you want to handball to. You handball that direction. Where do you think he handballs? Either straight past him or straight to the opposition player standing right in front of you. It is ridiculous. You cannot handball. I swear my players only tackle maybe 20% of the time I'm hitting the button to tackle. The only good thing I've found is I've actually found the kick passing is not too bad. If you see a player and you highlight him, you can sort of hold the button where you want to kick. You can kick it out to a little bit of space and have him run onto it. There's been a little bit of fun there. The goal kicking, I'm not sure. The wind, there's arrows on the ground that are pointing where the wind's going, but you could barely see them. I only noticed them in my second game towards the end. There was actually a wind line going across the ground because you just cannot see it. It's that light. There's the marker when you're kicking for goal. You can hold the meter to how long you want to kick it, but then another meter comes up where I think you're supposed to hit your timing. But even if you hit the button sometimes, it just goes right to the end and your ball goes bloody out of bounds on the full, even though you think you've struck it perfectly. Like, there's so many things wrong with this game at the moment. The only thing I can say good about it is that I think the character models this time around do look quite good. You win a game, they go to the rooms, they actually have the players all singing the song. Anthony Donald Tip and Woody is just some dark guy, though. Clearly, they didn't get his place or anything. It's just ridiculously weird because he's one of the most recognisable players in the competition.
Well, I was going to say he's like a random Indigenous fellow,
yeah, pretty much.
Random Aboriginal man.
And I give them space for that because maybe he wasn't around when they were doing this game because he did take a hiatus from the game. But even our coach is not Scott, which is a new coach. You would have thought they got him. It's some bald guy with a beard at the moment. So I don't know whether all these things are supposed to be in a day one patch, which God help me, I hope they are, because all accounts from everyone, this game is completely and absolute trash at the moment.
Is this so? To my eye, looking at this, obviously now I do not follow the AFL at all. I know tis to me. I grew up in Geelong. I should be a Geelong person.
Sorry.
Bully's done. So
speaking of Geelong, how'd they go last weekend, Unky?
They got to win.
So my eyes tuned to like MLB The Show 23, which looks phenomenal. This game, Bully, I'll pull out one of your lines. This looks last gen to me. What's going on with the crowd? Doesn't look right. Nothing of this looks flash. The way the character models are moving on screen, very stiff. None of this looks next gen. So was it the game at least half price? What sort of entry point?
Full price.
Oh.
But the thing, and I spoke about it on the Let's Play, which again, hopefully that'll go live in the next day or two as well. But
they'll both be up tomorrow.
Yeah, there's some. You've got to understand, I think, and have some understanding of the studio that's put it together, which is Big Ant Studio. It's an Australian-based studio. So when you're comparing, and I think it's a little unfair to compare it to games like MLB or 2K's basketball or...
Well, if they didn't charge the same price, I wouldn't make the comparison.
Oh, to a degree, I understand that. But the way I sort of look at it is that those games are going to sell millions and millions of copies every single year that they put them out. There's arguments made, do they really change much year to year, or is it just mainly rosters and a few tweaks here and there? So you can make that argument as well. But what I will say is that you're selling an AFL game to predominantly an Australian audience only, and even within that Australian audience, you're probably only looking at selling it to somewhere between 60 and 80% of the country, because some of the northern states don't follow AFL as much, if at all. So your market share is very slim. Now, you can make an argument and sit there and say, well, that's their decision to make a game, and if you're not going to make money out of it, well, don't make it, or if it's not worth it, don't make it. I understand that argument as well, but I guess my expectations were tempered a little in the fact that I'm not expecting that top tier EA 2K style game. Graphics wise, I can overlook the crowds. I can overlook some of the character models and the player models and all that sort of stuff. But what you can't overlook is exactly what Unky's talked about, is that you just physically cannot play the game. The AI is broken to the point of being absurd. Whether we get to it in the video that's on screen at the moment, but I took a mark in the goal square, which is, it's a bit hard to explain to anyone that doesn't understand AFL, but you're 5 meters out and you're kicking a ball through essentially, soccer goals, but with no top bar. So you're 5 meters away with no one in front of you. Well, my player, instead of kicking it directly that 5 meters, turned around and kicked it 50 meters over his head. Just
Did you fail to check the wind indicator, possibly?
Oh, yeah, it must have been blowing. There must have been a hurricane blowing in my face. I don't know. But...
And Bully, I don't know if you've noticed it, but they don't actually tell you how to play the game. There's no tutorial. Like, to work out how to ruck, you actually have to use the joystick to ruck, but they don't tell you that at all. They don't tell you when you need to hit the button and actually take a mark. There's a white circle coming out. Normally in the other games, they'll have 2 circles coming together. If you time it right, you mark it. This one, you're like, I don't know when I'm supposed to hit triangle. I'm just mashing triangle as that circle comes down. Like, this is all stuff that makes me believe the game's not finished or what, because how are we supposed to know how to actually play this game? They've got the controllers setting out a thing, but they don't even show you the fundamentals about when or how you're supposed to do half these mechanics.
Do they have much or anything with respect to live rosters? Like, the cool thing about the MLB The Show is I can just go on and say, give me today's baseball game, and the lineups match the lineup or yesterday's game, and I can go for it. So can you play like this week's Geelong game, for example?
Not at the moment. I think that's in the plans. I think from what I've heard from Big Ant Studios, that is the plan to go live in terms of all that kind of stuff. The roster seemed pretty up to date with who the players are in your side. Granted, we've lost a player for much the whole year. He's lined up at full forward at the moment, so they didn't get that memo. But they also didn't get the memo that Tip and Woody is just not a dark fellow with black hair, and that's it. But it's just, there's a lot of things in this game that we could gripe on it. But Troy, I'm pulling out the infringement notice for this one, mate.
Oh, look out! Let me find him up.
Bang.
4 point.
4 points for that one. It's inexcusable. Put it back in its box. It needs to cook for another couple of months before this thing is even ready for I think, especially for full price.
Did you buy it digitally or physically, mate?
Digitally.
Digitally, so there's not even really cause for a refund, is there? Could you bring them up and be still like...
There probably is, and to be honest, like, if they fix some of these things, I do enjoy playing an AFL game and just jumping in there and having a game. They just need to fix those fundamental things, and I think it'll be fine. What baffles me is that what we're getting at the moment is like a 55 gig download. Like, I don't see how this is more than 12 gig.
That's crazy. The other thing of note that really is slapping me in the face, that just in contrast to MLB The Show, and I'm just banging on MLB The Show because I've been putting a fair bit of time into it lately, but I watch MLB daily and I play the MLB The Show, and the big thing I'm noticing in here watching the AFL game, I can't believe all the advertisers are in. Toyota, Telstra, Coles, Chemist Warehouse. Like, you go to the American games and there's no real advertising in there. Like, they must be paid by the AFL to make the game, then they're getting revenue from all the advertisers on screen, and they're charging gamers to play the game. This game development studio is getting paid by 3 different people for a game that sounds very subpar.
Yep.
All right, then, no further points. We've slammed AFL. Should we move on?
Let's move on. We've got a fair bit of show to go.
Oh, it's all good. I'll be nice and quick here. This one's me, and it's just a really quick Resident Evil 4 update. And mainly, this is just me wanting to give you a thanks on air, Unky, for telling me how to get this beautiful hand cannon firing beautifully. I'm just walking through Resident Evil 4 now with the hand cannon. It's a thing of absolute beauty. Thoroughly enjoying my time with it. I've just just finished, chapter 10, past the 17-hour mark, and really just love my time with it. That hand cannon's great. My question to you, Unky, is I think you said there was a second unlock in the Mercenaries mode. Unlock 1 was getting the hand cannon. What's unlock 2 from Mercenaries mode?
No, nothing for mercenaries. I think hand cannon's the main one. The other one is, once you got this, is to go through and get all the gems to get the unlimited rocket launcher. But that's playing through the main game and buying it from the merchant after your first playthrough.
Very good. Well, that's it for me. I absolutely love this game, and the game is just continuing to raise its score. The more I play, the more I'm having flashbacks. Oh my God, I remember this, and this looks so much better and plays so much better now.
More other games come out undercooked, and you realise just how good this thing is.
Yeah, it's almost like they've been working on this game for, 24 years or something?
Yeah.
Any points from you, Bully, on Resi 4? I know, just real brief touch on this one.
No, not really. I had a bit of a crack at the Mercenaries mode, but haven't really gone back to it. I think I mentioned at the time I was happy with the one playthrough I did, and more than happy to go back to it at some point down the track, but just have that sort of break in between, I guess.
Yeah, nice one. It's a great one to play with Dead Island 2. I found bouncing between those two quite satisfying. We'll stick with you here, Bully, for Game 6, Advanced Wars 1 and 2. Now, I know nothing about either of these games, so tell me everything from the start.
Well, essentially, there's a bit of a story behind them. So, Advanced Wars was a Game Boy Advance game that came out, I'll say, the better part of 20 years ago. So there was 1 and 2 on as separate games on the Game Boy Advance. They've remade them, put them into one package, and it's called the Reboot Camp. So there's where you get the reboot from. It was supposed to come out about March or April last year, and I think within a week or so of the release date then was the war between Ukraine and Russia broke out, and Nintendo wisely decided let's not throw out a campaign about, a bunch of games about war. And if you look at the map, it's sort of loosely based on Europe as well. And even some of the characters, like one of the first sort of enemies, I guess, that you go across is, a big hulking bloke with a beard that could very easily be mistaken for a generic Russian antagonist. So, some people will say, well, what does it matter? They should have just released it anyway. I probably think they made the right move in delaying it. But in terms of the game itself, it is basically a top-down strategy war game. And it looks very simple. You can see on the screen, like you sort of look at it and go, yeah, there's not much to it. It's fairly simple, fairly generic. There's small maps that each battle takes place on. But within that, you've actually got a number of different units that all have different abilities depending on whether they're soldiers. They might have different weapon types, or, you've got different levels of tanks. You've got aircraft, boats, all that sort of stuff. But each one has benefits to using it, both in attack and defense, and it also has negatives. So you've got to weigh all that up and how you position your units across the battlefield. You've got to look at what the opponent has in his repertoire, and you've really got to learn the ins and outs of how far your enemy's able to move, how far yours are able to move, and then basically come up with a strategy before you start moving your units around. So you can use, you've got an area of movement for each unit per turn. You can move all your units, and then it's your turns over, and then the enemy takes his turn, moves all his, and then either attacks or positions. So it's actually really strategic in the way that it's sort of put together. And you've got to really work through and think about how am I going to attack this position? How am I going to position my units? How am I going to win this? And there's multiple ways to win it. So you can destroy all the enemy units, which is very difficult because you only get a certain amount. It's not like the old Command and Conquer or Warcraft type games where you can build a base and just start cranking out units left, right, and center. You get a set amount of units on the map at the start, and once they're gone, you're defeated and you're finished. So you can either.
So what you're saying is I couldn't finish this game.
Well, not if you just went headlong into attack. But there is no platforming, Troy. There is no platforming.
But you've just said I can't use my strategy. Stay back, build up this ridiculously large army, and then just flood the field.
Well, no. So maybe you wouldn't win. But so you can either do it that way, or alternatively, each enemy has a headquarters that you can either try and sneak one unit around the back and try and take it before they can position their units, or you can almost create a blockade of your units around where another one needs to go to capture the enemy headquarters. So
no Trojan horse option?
Not at this stage, not from what I've seen, but certainly there's and then on top of that, you've got I guess you call them generals or advisors in each of the levels, and you can unlock more as you go along that each have a special ability. So, there's some that'll freeze I think one of the main antagonists that you start playing against, he can freeze the battlefield, which limits the movement of your army and your characters, but it doesn't limit his. So, there's stuff like that that you can factor in as well that you can unlock depending on how far you're sort of progressing in the game. So, I've probably put 3 or 4 hours into it. I've really enjoyed it so far. As I said, it looks pretty simple, but it does have a lot of depth to it, and you get 2 games in the one. I think it's really worthwhile if strategy games are your thing, and you get any enjoyment out of that whatsoever. I think it's well worth the value, and well worth having a look at. And there's certainly a lot of gameplay in there as well.
And how does this go, mate, if you have handheld mode versus on the screen mode? Is there an obvious better way to play it? Or?
Oh, I'm probably not the best person to ask that. I don't think I've ever played the Switch in handheld.
Okay.
I think I tried it once or twice when I first got it for about 5 minutes. I just can't. I'm not a big handheld fan. I can't really do it. I've got to have it plugged into a TV. I need 65 inches of bright white light staring me in the face when I'm playing a game. So I couldn't tell you how it performs handheld, but certainly it performs pretty well, as you would expect from an older game that's been remade. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's well worth it. It's got you can see some of the art style there. It's got that Japanese art style where they sort of try and imitate Western cartoons, which is probably a funny way of describing it, but it actually looks really.
I'm with you 100%. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it actually looks really good. It's a Nintendo Switch game, so you're not going to get full voiced cutscenes, but you are going to get your anime style. You've got to read through most of the narrative, which is okay. I don't mind all that stuff. So, if that's your sort of game, I certainly recommend it. If it's not, you're probably not going to get a lot out of it. You're probably not going to enjoy it, and it might not be worth your time. But if you've got even a
full price.
No, it wasn't full price. If you give me a sec, I'll be able to tell you exactly what the price is. But where are we? Sorry, just trying to bring it up. No, it certainly wasn't full price. In fact, I got it for at the time 59 Australian dollars. So I guess I get 40 odd US or 30 to 40 US dollars. So I think it's well worth it. But as I was saying, if you've even got a passing interest in strategy games, I think it's well worth your time.
Fair call. Unky, any final points from you, or shall we move on?
Move on.
Very good. Next one is another brief one from me. This is just Doom Eternal running on the PlayStation 5. I did the install today. That's up on the channel. We've obviously sung Doom Eternal's praises on this show many times in the past. This is just a real quick notification, really, to let everyone know it was recently added to the 2 higher tiers, Extra and Deluxe, here in Australia on the PlayStation Plus. So if you're in those up tiers, you can get the native PS5 version of Doom Eternal at no additional cost, and it runs a silky smooth 60 frames a second and is mouth-wateringly, deliciously just smooth, silky. It's an absolute perfect port. If you enjoy your Doomslayer action, this game, 100% go hands-on. You will not be disappointed. Just 2 massive thumbs up. I love it.
Are you trying to say, Troy, that a Bethesda studio could release a game running at 60 frames a second.
And everything about it's beautiful, mate. The UI works perfectly. It's a snappy UI. There's no sort of long, crazy monologues or anything. There's just sharp, beautifully rendered, full textured cutscenes straight into a fast, punchy story, interesting, compelling animations on the enemies, great variety, cool weapon wheel, well executed, just top to bottom. This game, high watermark. I love it.
60 frames a second, runs well, has a weapon wheel.
Yep.
Can we send Arcane over there, please?
I wish we could. To doom with you, Arcane. Now, the final one today, we had to finish on another Star Wars one being May the 4th. This one, boys, is now available in Rocket League. It's the R2-D2 and C-3PO cars. Can be unlocked between now and the 16th of March. You got sort of 2 weeks. How good does this look, Unky? Look at these cars.
That's pretty good. I mean, there's also a Fortnite Star Wars thing going on at the moment as well, which is, if I was going to do anything Star Wars, it's probably that, but this looks pretty damn cool.
Oh, yes. I'm a big fan of the Rocket League. And check this out, guys. Do you blokes remember on this channel a couple of weeks ago, I put up a video. I was blown away by a ball explosion is the correct term, though I would argue it's a goal explosion. No, it's called a goal explosion. I would argue it's a ball explosion. Got that backwards. But it's the red shade. Look, you're about to see it here. Watch me just tuck this one in and you'll see this explosion. But I was blown away and asked the question, look at this goal. Bang. Thank you very much. That goal explosion, though. Now, boys, Unky, pass me up the tinfoil hat that you borrowed earlier. Allow me to put it. Thank you, sir. Now, this goal explosion was available in-game back in 2019 during the season. Then you could unlock it. Since then, it's only been available if you trade it with somebody who unlocked it back then in-game. So limited resource, not available. Unky, what were the chances, do you reckon, after I commented I liked the goal explosion and the video got rapidly over 1,000 views? I think it was in less than 4 hours. It had 1,000 views. And then 3 in-game random loot drops later, I get the goal explosion that I was praising online. What are the chances that someone at Psyonix did me a solid, do you reckon, and just slotted that one into my upcoming queue?
Fair chance, man. I reckon they've looked after you there.
I reckon they have too. So whoever did that at Psyonix, thank you very much. I love my new goal explosion. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is it for Games, Interrogation, and Deliberation this week. If you're a Rocket League fan, get in there and get those Star Wars cars. Look like a thing of beauty. Shall we kick in a newsroom door, gentlemen?
Let's do it.
Unky, who has the right to remain newsworthy this week?
Oh, we spoke about it a bit first. May the 4th with you. Respawn apologises for State of Star Wars Jedi Survivor on PC. So it was obviously getting very bad reports on the PC. I think Digital Foundry came out and said it was the worst AAA PC port of 2023 so far, which is saying a lot because there's been a lot of bad ones. Which is also weird considering they delayed the game 6 weeks to get it up to a state which was going to be apparently fine and to the level and polish the fans deserve. So
you should have seen how this game was running 7 weeks ago on PC. It was burning CPUs, I hear.
Oh, mate, just even how it's running now, even with sort of the PS5 sort of frame and stuff, like you would have thought that's the stuff they're going to get polished before day dot, just in this day and age, but obviously couldn't get there. They've come out there, they've apologised. We know they'll get it fixed. Well, we hope they do. I mean, it still took them a while to get Fallen Order to a space where that game was playable, not playable, but playable without the hitches that it had. And, it's still got issues today. So who knows whether they can turn it around with a much bigger game. But I hope they do. And as long as they're apologising, they're aware of it. That's the main thing. I love when the developers are transparent with us. It's worse when they go radio silent and don't tell us what's going on with the game. So I prefer them coming out and saying, yep, we know we've got issues. We're going to fix it.
May the 4th be with them in their patching endeavours. Would you argue that maybe console's a better platform to play video games on, Unky?
Probably have a fair argument for that recent time, especially the way these PC games are coming out, especially with the way even, the big boys on, Last of Us and stuff came out. Even that couldn't run on a PC. So, you know what? I'm all for the console games.
Bully, did I just lip read you correctly? Did you just say console master race?
Don't antagonise them. You know what they're like. I
was just lip reading what you said. That wasn't me, mate. They can Geek Aloud on Twitter to speak to you directly about that.
They'll be lighting motherboards and RAM sticks out the front of my house by the end of the show.
They spend more time trying to get their games to work than actually playing video games these days.
How are those driver updates coming along?
I got an extra 2 frames per second by doing this and this.
All right, no more on this story. Let's move on to story 2, shall we?
Story 2. This one was a little bit older because it hit the news, I want to say, maybe 2 weeks ago when the trailer
20th of April. 20th of April.
There you go. So, trailer for photorealistic indie body cam shooter Unrecord becomes an overnight internet sensation. The footage has had players arguing over its authenticity and its subject matter, which indeed it has, because even Troy himself, before the show started, said, "This is a load of shit, Steve."
Yeah, it certainly looked it to my eye.
But no, I've done some investigating because I too, when I first saw it, gone, this is way too real good to be true in terms of the way it actually looked and all that. I have seen some videos since which does show some game, or not gameplay stuff, but it shows the developer going through that actual building where you see the lone protagonist sort of going through with the gun and shooting people. But this is more of a going through them and showing the assets and stuff of the walls and all the objects that are within the world. So it makes me think it potentially is a game. Whether it's a game we get to see come out, I don't know. Maybe it's just proof of concept or something. But they've given it a name, so I don't know. With Unreal Engine 5 stuff and stuff we're seeing come out for that, like we're still probably a while away from when we start seeing some of that stuff come out. But this definitely did pique my interest, and I did watch that. And a lot of people have shown at work this footage. And just if you get them just to watch it, they don't know that it's not real. Like they think it's real straight away. And same for me. Just from that, the body cam perspective just adds a little bit more to it. That doesn't make it look a shooter. The reload animation on the gun is just superb. The way he's shooting just seems realistic. The way the bodies hit the ground, it's just got that air of realism about it that we just haven't sort of seen in video games, which is why a lot of people are very skeptical about it.
Oh yeah, paint me still skeptical. This to me looks like a uni video effects final project more than a video game. I would love to be wrong. I'll be the first person to admit I was wrong if this turns out to be a real game, and sign me up. I'd love to play a game that looks this real, but this still just looks fake to me. Bully, are you there? Any thoughts? It looks like he's not so unky. Next story?
Next story was a big one. Don't know if you've watched the trailer yet, but we have the first Armored Core 6 gameplay trailer confirms an August.
I have watched the trailer, and boy, am I excited.
From Software's next game is available to pre-order now as well. So Bandai Namco has released the first gameplay footage for Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, which is viewable below. So if you want to go check out BGC or anything on YouTube, you'll be able to find the gameplay footage for this game. But this has got all kinds of bullet hell, Returnal meets FromSoft stuff. I am all for this. I cannot wait.
I can't wait to bust my thumbs and fingers on this game. It looks fantastic, but terror to the fingers, it appears, but I'm willing to go there.
Oh, I cannot wait. It's just got that the Returnal aspect to it, but just the way the bosses work and stuff is very FromSoft, but they've obviously moved away from the monsters and stuff of Elden Ring and Dark Souls and gone that with a more robotic sort of futuristic style. And the way some of those bosses seem to progress throughout their fighting or throughout the boss fights, and just the amount of stuff coming at you is going to be insane to try and get out of the way of. But us seasoned platinum Returnal players should have no issues, Troy.
Oh, yeah, I think I'll just be able to dust off the old controller and walk straight through the platinum on this. How about you, Bully? Any thoughts? The old Armored Core 6 gameplay trailer?
No, I didn't catch it, but then I haven't played any of the previous ones. So, I'll probably be interested in a little bit. I'm not sure. I keep saying this. It won't be a day one, and then it ends up being a day one. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Well, it depends how long it takes to get the refund from the AFL gaming, eh?
Nothing's a day one when you order from Amazon either, Bully.
Zing!
Amazon ain't got none of my money recently.
Good to hear. Next news story.
All right, here we go. Dead Island 2, Unky. What's happening?
We spoke about it tonight, but good to see. Dead Island 2 has topped 1 million sales in 3 days, according to Deep Silver. So the long-delayed sequel is off to a strong start. So we spoke about it tonight, and obviously came out to decent enough reviews and a way better reception than we were expecting. So I'm glad to see the game selling as well as it is.
Indeed. 2 massive thumbs up from me. If you're sitting on the fence, I say make the plunge. You won't regret it. Story, whatever we're up to. Hunky, next story, please.
Story number 5. Be careful out there. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is in the wilderness. It has leaked nearly 2 weeks before release. Again, I know Bully's spoken about this in the past as well, that, Zelda games, they can't really get spoiled too much because it's all about the stuff you're doing in the game. I, again, don't want any story spoilers. I want a good story. So I enjoyed the story for Breath of the Wild for what it was. I still don't want to know the main beats of this game. Yes, most of the game is just going to be sort of how you enjoy it, how you interact with the world, all that kind of stuff. But I still don't want to spoil the stuff that's happening in between those moments of me exploring. So I like to have a little carrot on the end of the stick for the reason I'm doing these things in the game. So be careful out there. There are going to be people I've already seen on YouTube. You scroll through, you type in any kind of Zelda content. There's people putting up the start of the game already. And I don't want to say I saw like maybe 10 seconds of one thing. One spoiler alert for you is, oh, that frame rate. I don't know whether it was the stream he had it on, but he was dropping through the sky and it was doing these ones. I'm like, oh, that's not good. But he's probably not playing on the day one patch, just like AFL.
So, if you're going headlong into the internet with no fear of spoilers for Zelda, I heard a rumor, and can you confirm this, that they've actually just lifted the framework from Sonic Frontiers?
Well, if Link sports a blue spiky piece of armor and starts zipping along little tracks at warp speed, I'll be shocked. But
mate, he does zip along the tracks. Have you seen one of the trailers? He actually does zip along like rails now.
No, well, I've tried same with most things. I'm the same as you, Unky. I don't want to see too much of the trailers. A lot of especially for the first game, a lot of it for me was about the exploration and the trial and error and working out things for yourself rather than, jumping onto YouTube or watching videos or having people speak about what they were doing in their experience, because it sort of ruins it a little bit. But I'm going to go and probably shock both of you. I'm going to give you the Zelda spoiler as I've seen it.
Wait, let me guess. When he gets hit, 10 gold rings fly out of him.
Yes. I'm gonna probably upset a few listeners or viewers here and say Zelda gets into trouble. Link has to venture out, and Ganon is the protagonist.
I think you've nailed it, Bully. I think you've nailed it.
Every Zelda game ever.
Good work.
They're going to change it up this time, I guarantee.
Yeah, they've taken a leaf out of Mario Movie's book, and Link's the one who is being rescued by Zelda this time.
Yeah, granted, you probably play as Zelda at some point in the game, probably.
Chapter 10, I think, and, Link's trapped in the bars, and you've got to go get the key and throw it down to him. Yeah. All right, next story, Unky. Final one for the evening.
Next story, we did report about this a couple of weeks ago with Microsoft Showcase coming. So Microsoft announces Xbox Game Showcase start time and live streaming details. Looks like you can get it across pretty much all streaming platforms. But they have announced the time. I did go have a look at that. It's 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. BST, 7 p.m. CET. But I think none of that covers us. I believe if I looked, 10 a.m. Pacific time looks like it was 3 a.m. for us.
That sounds right.
If I'm not mistaken. So we aren't watching this live in Australia, boys, unfortunately. So we'll have to wake up and watch this one, but that's okay. Maybe they've released a patch and the thing actually runs when they're actually showing us the footage for all these games from Xbox Game Studios.
Have you blokes zoomed up on this image at all?
The Xbox and Starfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm zooming now. What do we got?
I find it interesting that the Xbox Games Showcase is running at 60 frames a second, but when we go to the Starfield Direct, that one's only at 30 frames a second.
There's a patch coming. There's a patch coming.
That's what I said. Maybe get the patch for you by the time it drops in Australia. For us in the morning, they've released that day one patch, and we should be watching it silky smooth, 60 frames per second. I'm actually worried for Starfield at the moment. I think the fact that Redfall got out under control, the way it was, I'm scared to think that damage control is not going to be done properly on Starfield at the moment. But let's hope they can put all that stuff to rest, because there's going to be a microscope on this Starfield Direct on this day. Just everyone's going to be counting those frames and see all those PC guys out there. Oh yeah, extra 2 frames. They're going to be out there. I hope that they just put it to rest straight up in this thing and say this has performance mode.
Yeah.
And then shows us gameplay that's going to blow us away, because Microsoft cannot afford any more hits. Any more fails. They need a hit.
They do. They absolutely do. I'm more excited for the Xbox Game Showcase and the Starfield Direct myself. Do we know, have they given us a firm date for Starfield yet, or is it still loose?
I think Starfield did have a date. Wasn't it September sometime? Bully, you might be able to check that, but just while you're checking that, I just need to say that I think Microsoft has to have a big conference. They need to start showing games. Like they've set up in these previous conferences all these dominoes that they've got ready to go, and they need to start pushing that domino thing and letting them all fall and just showing us what they've got, and let them, they need to let the game speak for themselves, because at the moment all they're doing is talking to us and not showing us anything. So we need to see what all these studios they bought up are actually developing. We need to see more on Hellblade 2. That game probably should already be out. I'm a bit worried about that one as well. They need to show Perfect Dark. They need to show us new Banjo-Kazooie. They just need to do something to get back in the goodwill of gamers at the moment, because at the moment, Microsoft, this is sort of the toughest time. Their merger went down. We didn't speak about that, but that merger's with Activision's gone through the that's gone down the gurgler this week as well, and then Redfall comes out, and that's critical mess as well. So they just need a win, and they just need to start shoulder some games.
I couldn't agree more, mate. Scary times for Microsoft. They've really copped a couple of sharp ones in the teeth recently. It's not good. I really hope they turn it around quickly somehow. I don't know how they're going to. Bully, any thoughts? Is there some sort of silver lining I've missed?
September 6th is Starfield. That's the release that we've got at the moment. I'm not as concerned, I guess, for Starfield. Yes, it's Bethesda. There's always concerns with the bugs and all the rest of it. I think people are really hanging their hat on the performance of Redfall and the 30 frames issue, and pushing that across to Starfield and saying, well, Starfield needs to be taking a warning from this, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't really see, they're not the same type of game. And I think from what we've seen and what we're expecting, and, obviously things can change when the game's released, but we're looking at a very expansive open world game. I'm anticipating that there's no way on earth that's running anywhere near 60 frames a second. I think that's a 30 frames every day of the week, just because of the world building that we know that Bethesda do we've seen it in Fallout, and we've seen it in the Elden Ring. Sorry, not the Elden Ring. The
Elder Scrolls.
Elder Scrolls is what I'm after. Thanks. We've seen it in those sort of games, the world that they put together and how expansive and how full it is of, different enemy types and NPCs and quests and all the rest of it. I just really don't expect that it's going to be anything more than 30 frames a second.
If you're in saying that, though, I think that's what you need to do. You need to set those expectations early. With Starfield, I think a lot of people got angry because that was like a week out from launch, or maybe a little bit more than a week, where they just dropped that news that it was only going to be 30 and we've got a performance mode coming. I think if they can actually just show us the game, get us excited for the game, if they put those expectations to rest, that yes, this game is going to run at 30 on day dot, and don't even give us the we've got a performance mode coming. Don't even give that to us. If it comes down the track, fine, but don't dangle that in front of us at the time. Just say, yep, this game's going to run at 30, and then if people ask about it, just move it aside. No, this game's so big, so expansive. What we're doing, it can't run at 60 frames per second on a next-gen console. And then, surprise us down the track when it does. But it's about setting those expectations. So I think either way with this one, you either tell us it's got a performance mode day dot, so people aren't speculating, or you go, bang, it's 30 frames per second, and let people sort of sit in it for a bit longer.
Couldn't agree with you more, Unky. Let's move along now. The new releases from Game Informer, Unky.
New releases this week, pretty much by the time we're talking about them now, they are all out. So we've got Age of Wonders on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Redfall.
Age of Wonders 4, sorry.
Age of Wonders 4. Redfall on Xbox Series X and S and PC. Grindstone, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4. Super Dungeon Maker on Switch and PC. And Ravenlock on Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, PC, and is also on Game Pass. I installed it just before going live tonight.
Ravenlock's on Game Pass, sorry?
It is, yes.
What type of game is that? The name's vaguely familiar, but I can't place it.
From what I can tell so far, it's sort of a side-scrolling adventure style game with a bit of base building stuff. It's hard to really explain it because
was it featured in the last Microsoft showcase? I feel like I know it from there.
Briefly, it's very indie title-ish in the way it sort of looks and stuff. It's got a cute little art style to it. What I didn't like this is I only played it for literally like 15 seconds, but you create your name, or you don't even create your character, you've got your character at the start, and you're naming your save file. I named it Steve, and they go, you've named your character. I'm like, my character's clearly a female called Steve now. So, you know what? It probably fits for today's day and age, but anyway.
All right then, guys, it is time for everyone's favourite segment, the Standoff.
Who will fight?
Unky Dunky, who will fight?
All right, May the 4th be with you. Star Wars Jedi Survivor's out now. It stars our carrot-topped friend, Cal Kestis. So we're asking which other video game redhead would be best suited to survive a Star War. Number 1, Miss Joanna Dark. And if Xbox needs to do anything right, they need to show us the next Perfect Dark. But anyway, besides the point, This is Jig. She stepped in for James Bond when they, released the spiritual successor to GoldenEye. She was a badass biddy with some red hair, and I enjoyed this character a lot and really enjoyed my time with her in Perfect Dark. I thought she was such a good character and stuff for the Nintendo 64 back in the day.
Oh, yes, I spent many hours with Joanna Dark. That's her name, isn't it? Yeah.
Joanna Dark. And you might argue that she could survive a Star Wars. She's already in the future here, shooting pistols, shooting guns. Granted, some of these guys... Actually, no, these guys probably are maybe better shots than Star Troopers. Starship Troopers. What was I saying? Stormtroopers, that's the one. So, you know what? She's probably well accustomed to having bullets flying past her head and missing her and getting off the shot. So, I reckon she'd go right in the old Star Wars.
Strong first entrant, mate. You're right. She'd be right at home. Who's entrant? Oh, sorry, Bully. Your thoughts on the old Joanna Dark?
Where's the new one? That's what I want to know. It's been talked about for years.
Give it to her.
Come on, Microsoft. Come on, Microsoft. Lift your game.
2028, Bully. They'll get right on that.
Funnily enough, that's when the patch for Redfall comes out.
Zing! All right, entrant 2 this week.
Entrant 2, slight mild spoiler alert, you play as Atreus in God of War 2, but this game's been out a while now, but little Atreus, this guy, he could kick some absolute ass up there with the best of them with Kratos, takes on the exact same enemies with just as much guile, if not more guile than the old big man, because the big man a bit slow and cumbersome. This guy can jump and swing, he's got his sword, he's got his bow and arrow, and he can kick an absolute ass, especially if you finish the game, boys, you might actually find out what he's capable of.
And he's as annoying as Jar Jar Binks, so he fits right into the Star Wars.
Oh, no, he was really annoying in the first game. By the second game, he's lovable. And he's obviously accustomed to Star Wars because, look, he's in Hoth right now. He's fine. He can survive the Star Wars. He can take on the AT-ATs and ST Walkers, whatever they're called, out there in Hoth because he's more accustomed to the snow than probably a lot of those other people would be. And
going through, I'm blanking on the name of it, but the gate to get on the thing and the fast travel system, it's a lot like jumping into Lightspeed in the old Millennium Falcon, I reckon.
Damn straight, he's all over it, mate. He can survive that Star War.
Oh, yeah, he'd be all about it. What about entrant number 3? Could they participate?
I think participant number 3 could participate. Aloy, she's got some flowing red locks, so she's up there when it comes to the Ranger ability to rival Cal Kestis. So there's no issue there. Maybe it makes her more of a target for the enemies out there with that flowing hair. But I dare say, if you can take on robot dinosaurs, you can take on robot robots.
And if you can't, you could just clone yourself in another 100 years and spit out another one of yourselves and hope for the best.
Damn straight. I mean, if she can take out a T-Rex with a bow and arrow, surely she can take out an AT-AT.
100%. Bully, are you the biggest fan of Aloy here, mate?
Love myself some Aloy. She's fantastic. She would fit right in battling the Star Wars. She's basically fighting all of the Empire's evil robots as it stands, just in dinosaur form, and she could take them on by herself. So there's no reason why she can't jump in there and take them all out.
I would love to see Aloy swinging a lightsaber too. That'd be a thing of beauty. All right, entrant number 4 this week, Unky?
Entrant number 4, we have
Sega.
Knuckles. He's not the main character of the Sonic games, but this guy, you could argue, could definitely, probably, maybe survive a Star War equally, if not better than the old Sonic. He can. Sonic could probably move and run and fast around him and stuff, but if you want to actually take on the Empire and, shove a fist up their ass, then you're going to want Knuckles, I reckon. Knuckles is going to, although Sonic, you might argue, could probably get himself inside the Death Star a bit easier, but Knuckles is sure hell going to take it out. So maybe you need to work together. But I think Knuckles, I don't know, is he got fur or is it hair? I don't know. I mean, it's red.
Dreadlocks. I always presumed they were dreadlocks.
Oh, let's go with hair. So he's still allowed to be on this list. I mean, he's still a redhead, I suppose.
Yeah.
In fact, the rest of his body's red as well. So, you know what? I definitely reckon he could take on the Empire.
He could indeed. All right, entry number 5. I like this one.
If you wanted a character that's already pretty much got the Force, it's Jessie Faden from Control. This girl can handle a gun, just like you can need to handle if you're in a Star War. Force powers. She can throw people around, as you can see on screen. This chick is already a Jedi. She just needs to be handed a melee weapon. That's all she needs. That's about the only thing you need from her, because she can do everything else.
Yeah, I could definitely see her run around with a lightsaber, fighting stormtroopers aplenty. I think this is a top entrant this week. Bully, any thoughts from you on the old Jessie Faden?
No, I haven't got a lot. I reckon I'll put maybe 5 hours into the game. And
go now. Turn your camera off and go finish Control, mate. You got some work to do.
I'll just go back. Talk about redheads. I'm sure there's plenty of redheads in the AFL. I'll just go back and play that.
Oh,
If you can get it to load.
Oh, this is one of the best redheads going out there in terms of. And look at, she's even wearing like a Jedi outfit. She's good to go as far as I'm concerned. Sign her up.
Fire up. She's done. All right. What about number 6, Hunky?
Oh, number 6, the big bad from Zelda. We've got Ganon or Ganondorf. He's shown up in lots of different iterations, but this guy, he's up there when it comes to evil. Whether you want to use him to take on a Star Wars or is he going to start one himself, I don't know. But either way, I think he's capable.
I could see him in the cantina playing the old organ as well. Dun, 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 dun.
He totally could. Maybe that could be his role. He could play the soundtrack to the Star Wars.
Play himself on as he walks down the corridor.
Yeah, it was straight. And he is well and truly known for that red head of hair, even when he's in his weird form that's above the castle in Breath of the Wild. There's a lot of red going on there. I dare say that's just his hair follicles escaping out the top of the castle.
Bully, your favourite Ganon in the Star Wars?
In Star Wars or Zelda?
Well, favourite Ganon from Zelda that you'd put in a Star Wars?
I don't know. I'm always a bit partial to the Link to the Past. Link to the Past. That's a N64, isn't it? The first one.
Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time. I'm having a mental breakdown here. I must be thinking about that AFL game too much. It's infecting my head. Yeah, that was the first time we saw him in 3D. I thought it was pretty special, even though they named him Ganondorf in that one when he'd been Ganon for the rest of them, which was a bit bizarre. But, it's close because you talk about a Star Wars. Is he going to start the Star Wars? Or is he going to put the Triforce together in a particular way that it becomes a star, and that's how he's going to take over the world?
I like the thinking. Now, it was Ocarina of Time with young Link, wasn't it?
Yep.
You play both, yeah.
Did they have young Ganon in that one?
No.
Well, that's a missed opportunity. What about number 7?
Number 7, we have a Blanka from the Street Fighter series. So this guy, he can electricity, he can roll around like Sonic. So already there, he's got a couple of things on him. He's got some flowing red hair. This guy, I don't know whether he'd stand out too much for the old Star Wars, but I reckon he definitely fits in with one of the Star Wars sort of monsters as opposed to anything. I think you'd see him hanging out with the Ewoks or the Wookiees or something more.
Yeah,
so,
I could see him hanging out with the Wookiees.
Yeah, and I don't know how well they did against the old Star Wars bad guys, but they did okay, but mainly as a team. So I think Blanka may have to sort of settle with settling in with those Ewoks or Jawas or something like that.
He might be in the initial team for the Jedi Survivor and just wipe him out real quick.
Wipe him out real quick. I mean, he's got great red hair. I just don't know how well he's going to do at the old Star Wars.
What about entrant number 8, do we think?
I was just going to say, I reckon the best use of him is the first one. Instead of throwing the proton missile into that tiny little hole, you just have Blanka run up the trench, drop in the hole, and just start up the electrocution.
There we go. There we go. He's more than just a designated Ewok.
I love it, Bully. Great work. Number 8, Unky.
Number 8, this one might come as a surprise to most people with this one on the list, but Master Chief in the books is actually a redhead. So because we don't actually see his noggin in the game, unfortunately we do get to see it in the show, but in the game you never see
a bit more than that in the show.
Oh, damn straight, Master Cheeks himself. But in the game,
let me tell you, the curtains match the drapes or the carpet, whichever way you want to put it.
But in the video game, never takes the helmet off, so I can only assume that with the book canon we've got, our Master Chief under there is a ranger, and I'd have to argue he's already solved multiple Star Warses.
He is in space, he is travelling fast, and he's shooting lasers. I think he's already there.
He is, but unfortunately, we do never see his head, so we cannot confirm nor deny realistically whether he's A, a red, or B, even still got hair. I dare say after wearing a helmet that long, all those follicles are probably gone the way of Bully's head, I think.
Speaking of curtains and drapes, Bully, entrant number 9?
Well...
Oh, here we go. What's for Bully?
Back. Oh, Tris Marigold. I have to say, that was one of the hardest decisions to make when you were playing The Witcher, is whether you go after her or Yennefer as to which one your love interest would be. And
Tris all the way.
And I
Yennefer every day of the week.
Well, see, I think I went through different points of leaning either way, and
I mean, we know both of them. Let's agree we all know both.
But I don't know. There was just something about her, and especially in The Witcher 3, that particular green dress that she wears on the docks as you're saying goodbye to her. And for those of us that trawl through social media and the internet and all the rest of it, I'm sure we've seen various incantations of that particular dress. But in any event,
she kind of reminds me of the herbalist, whatever teacher from Hogwarts. Sorry, Molly.
Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Did you just bite your lip?
Did I bite my lip?
Yeah.
Bit my lip, bit my tongue. Put a knitting needle through my ears. The whole gamut. As much as
something.
Yeah, well.
Why did the laptop just go up? Anyway.
as much as I do love Triss, if you're gonna throw into a Star Wars, I don't know how well she will go unless she's sort of.
No, she's got magic.
Well, yes,
or a sorceress.
Whether she just sort of toodles around behind Leia and acts as the eye candy for the movie. I don't know.
It'll keep her alive. I mean, she's surviving a Star Wars. She's definitely going to survive it.
Excuse me, I've just got to look at some cosplay.
Well, you do that, Bully. Who's entrant 10, Unky?
Entrant 10. Didn't know her by name until I actually searched this thing, but we've got what previously was called for me the girl from Heavenly Sword, but her name is Noriko. A game that was, I think, a launch title or near there for the PS3 back in the day, and it was a showpiece game, and very similar like your God of War style games, where there's essentially just like an action adventure game where you get a whole bunch of abilities and a whole bunch of enemies on screen at any given time. But she had some flowing red locks, probably the most well-known red locks going around PlayStation for quite some time, because we didn't have Aloy or anything back then, but we did have Noriko. So I'm not sure what your boys' stance was on this game or whether you even played it back in the day, but I just remember it being a big deal when it first came out.
I never really spent too much time in it, but I would like to see Heavenly Saber.
As a sequel?
Sure, Bully, your thoughts?
Oh, I don't know where to go. You're dissing Triss. You're coming up with these ridiculous.
I get it.
The ridiculous.
Heavenly Saber, I get it, because she's going to use the lightsaber for the Star Wars. It's a good joke. It's a good joke, Bully. Come on. Clip that one out. Clip that one out, Troy. That one's going to TikTok.
Yeah, clip that one out. I think you've only got. Isn't TikTok only a short video though? We can't wait for you the gears to tick in the head for you to get a particular joke. So, no. In terms of the game itself, I missed the sort of launch window and maybe the first couple of years of the PS3. So I never really got into it, and I don't think I've ever played it since. But although it is sitting on the shelf somewhere in the ever-growing Amazon backlog collection. And that's Amazon the rainforest, not the stupid company that fails to deliver games on launch day.
Very good. All right, fellas, I'm going to put my hand up first and say my chips this week are with Jesse Faden. Entrant number 5. Does anyone want to back me?
No, I will back you. I know Bully's chips lie most likely with Aloy, but we're going to beat him here. Bully's going to sort of lose his list here because I'm pretty sure I'm going to control Jesse Faden because she's pretty much a Jedi already. She can handle herself. Bully hasn't even finished the game. He doesn't know what she's capable of.
She's good to go. Sign her up.
No, but I finished Horizon, and I certainly know what Aloy's capable of, and that's fighting giant robots. She's already may as well be in the Star Wars anyway because she's already engaged in it. Let's just.
How's she gonna counteract the dark forces and the Jedi abilities and stuff? How's she gonna do that with a bow and arrow? How?
Yeah, that's right, with a bow and arrow. I don't.
But they're just gonna grab that arrow out of the fresh air and shoot it straight back at her face. She's dead. No Star Wars for you, Aloy.
There's no need to get into semantics of how it's going to happen. The reality is it's going to happen.
It's whether she could survive a Star Wars. I don't know if she could.
Well,
she can beat the bad guys. She's just not
but
going
by
to survive at the end of
by
the
the
day.
same logic, Darth Vader could sit there and just go, "You can never hit me with a lightsaber because I'm just going to go push it out of the way." And
No, that's because he's going up against other Jedis with abilities like Jesse Faden has. Jesse Faden, you are our winner.
Jesse Faden, a winner is you, which brings us to the fourth and final segment. That's over to you, Bully, for audience integration. What's been happening in that there YouTube chat, my friend?
Well, you've been called out for the second time, Unky. There's a comment in there that when we had this singlet standoff that you missed out, CJ from San Andreas, and for
Who
this
have we
one,
missed?
in the who wore the best singlet standoff, which was a while ago,
Yeah.
that he missed.
Yeah.
Who did we miss tonight, I'm saying?
No,
Yeah, who do we miss tonight?
Well, I'm getting there. Hold your britches in place. So who'd you miss tonight? You missed Regina from Dino Crisis 1 and 2. She's taking on,
Regina. I thought it was Regina.
Oh, God. This is descending into a farcical mess.
Bully would like to see Trish's Regina.
Well, it's funny because when you talk about redheads, I'm surprised you didn't put Carmen Sandiego on there. But anyway, so there's two you missed.
She's a brunette with red outfit, isn't she?
Well,
not according to police fan fiction.
Bully would know whether the
depends which cosplay you're looking at, I suppose. So we had that. There's been comments in there about from Tigaro in relation to the AFL game.
How's he liking it?
Well, he hasn't played it, but he's sort of made the comment that they've never actually released a decent AFL game, and the reason is because the reality is it's not really conducive to a video game format. There's too many moving parts in it, which I don't necessarily disagree, but there has been the occasional decent AFL game. I think the AFL Evolution wasn't fantastic, but it was certainly playable and enjoyable for short periods of time. It just sort of lacked, some of the things that you'd see in some of the AAA games to sort of expand it out a little bit, but that's okay. And Eric Tate joined us in there as well. Welcome back, Eric. And
Hi, Eric.
He is, I haven't seen him since early in the chat, but he did mention that he was going to jump onto the PS4 version of Hogwarts. So he might be off enjoying that as we speak. And hopefully he can let us know next week how that plays on the PS4 compared to, obviously, we've all only played it on the PS5. And there was a couple of issues with how it sort of ran. Not massive issues, but, the occasional sort of loading screen and how that translates over to the last gen consoles, I suppose, would be very interesting to see, because I certainly haven't seen anything in relation to that unless you guys have. And also Midnight Sun's coming out next week for the PS4. He mentions that he's going to jump into, and that's
get on it. That is a phenomenal game. 2 big thumbs up from me for the old Midnight Suns.
Yes. And Tigaro's just jumped it again. Regina has bright red hair, you muppet. Feel free to take that up with him in person, Uncle.
Well, maybe if they remake the game and keep it fresh in my mind, maybe it makes the standoff next time.
Very good. Excellent work in that YouTube chat, Bully. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're off duty. Unky Dunky, thank you for joining us this evening, my friend.
My absolute pleasure. May the 4th be with us all.
Indeed. And Bully, thanks for coming along, mate. Good play.
Thanks, and good to be back again after we missed that week.
Once again, everyone, my apologies. My computer ate itself. I'll try to prevent it in future. But that's it for tonight. What else can you do with Geek Aloud? Like it, subscribe it. You'll never miss it. Oh, that was luck. Hey, that's something. Oh! Old Uncle Donkey. Donkey.